All right, welcome everyone to the budget hearing this evening, but before we start, I'm going to turn it over to Jim to make a couple of announcements.
All right, good evening, Jim Leahy, Vice Chairman of the Orange Board of Finance. If you at home have questions, you can email them to this address. I'm going to leave it up there for about 30 seconds, so go grab a pen. For those who are in the room, we have a sign-up sheet over here, right? And you can go over and sign up if you know you're going to have questions, so it's all good, anytime. But I wanted to make sure that those are the two ways that we're going to, public participation. Now, the Q&A is at the end. We have a whole section there. It's not time limited in any way. All right, so that's number one. Is everybody in the room good with that? John, are you good with that? You're hooked up to your computer, so you'll get those emails. All right, thank you. The second thing we want to, and I want to thank the AV team, Chris Kelly and his sister, and Paul Mangello, and Josh Cloutier. We came up with an idea, which particularly for the folks at home, we're going to recommend. Go to the Town of Orange website, which you can see is right up there, www.orange-ct.gov. That all-purpose button, I'll call it, we started it with the Fire Truck Challenge last summer, is used for special things. We have realized that the quality of the video on Optimum is suboptimal. The quality of the video on YouTube is much better. This will bring you immediately to the YouTube video. So people at home, we highly recommend, and we'll give you a second or two, right? Go to www.orangect.gov, right? And then click on that, and that will bring you to the video. And just to show you that it works, it said he, hoping that it works, right? I think it's right here. Yeah, there it is there, okay? And when you do that, I don't know how long it's going to take, Chris, when I click this other button to actually be there, but then you should be seeing what's on this screen here or something, or maybe it's me or whatever it is, all right? So it's taking a little long. There it is, okay? So that's what people at home are seeing. So a little bit of process improvement, and we're thankful for that, all right? And thank you, Chris, for executing that, and Josh and Paul. All right, and there you go. Kevin's on the video right there. Okay, so with that in mind, I'll just punch up for one more time the email address for those at home who want to submit a question, and you can do that at any point in time during the meeting. All right? With that preamble or preface to the meeting then, I just have one more thing, Kevin, and I'll toss it back over to you. Okay. There we go. Okay, Kev?
Okay, great. All right, welcome, and before we get into the meeting, I'm going to call on Matt Bowring, who to lead us in the pledge, and he served our country in the United States Marine Corps.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Up on the screen in front of you is our hearing agenda this evening. I'm not going to read everything to you, but we'll have Orange components, and then item 5, the Orange Board of Education budget presentation by Dr. Scarpetti. Item number 6 is the Amity budget presentation by Dr. Byers. Then we'll get back to the town, and as Jim mentioned at the end, item number 11 will be question and answers that, like he said, also is not limited. Our budget overview, the key contributors, obviously the First Selectman Jim Zioli, John Cifarelli, our Director of Finance and Administration, next to John, Audrey Gear, who's the Assistant Director, Art Williams, who's here with us as our Treasurer, the Orange Board of Education and the Board of Ed Finance Committee, same for Amity, all our town department heads, who I'd like to thank once again for all their hard work and doing a great job on their budgets. Our board this evening is myself, Kevin Houlihan. My far left is PJ Shanley. Next to him is Kevin Moffitt, Pat Romano, Jim Leahy at the podium, and Joe Nuzzo, who was not available this evening. Our budget development process says, in the past, once this ends, we usually start looking at the next year right away. We establish our guidelines based on, best condition, best, available information at the time. Amity prepares their budget. The Orange Board of Ed prepares their budget. All the town department heads submit, and it's reviewed by the first selectman, the finance director, and our board. And this budget is based on prioritization of needs, affordability, and unfortunately, the ongoing pandemic realities and costs we're still facing. And the budget before you this evening was voted on 6-0 by this board. Jim?
We've used this slide a lot in the past. We see the Board of Finance having two components, two responsibilities, I guess. Balancing all the services, the infrastructure. I went on a ride with Donnie Fair this morning and looked over a number of streets that look like my driveway. They need of help. Our commitment to the schools and adapting to whatever conditions are out there in the state. We're trying to balance those things, all right? That's on the one side, and balance that with town taxes. What you're going to see, and you probably already know, and the materials are in the back of the room, I'm sure you've already got them. The town taxes, they cover almost 92%, both residential and commercial, whatever the mill rate is, all right, of our expenditures. So most of it comes down to town taxes. We don't get a lot of help elsewhere. The second responsibility, and we basically run it like we run our home, really. It looks like doing more with less. Of course, we're trying to get the best bang for our buck. That's really, when we're doing our job, we're just trying to ask the types of questions to investigate costs, investigate needs, so that we have to ask those questions that we ask in all our house budgets as well. So you've seen that before. One of the things we have stressed, and we're going to come back to this tonight as well, is, compound interest is a big deal. I mean, we know that a certain amount, but sometimes we forget just a little bit. I know I do. And it might be those with children, you might want to, mention a little bit of a thing that kind of looks like this. What's the difference between a 1% increase a year and a 4% increase a year? It feels not that much, 1, 4, 2.5, right? Whatever it is, But over a 10-year period, you can see that a 1% increase reaches $100 or a number 100, 110.5, whereas 4% gets you up to 148, a very big deal. So if we're investing our money and we want interest, obviously we want it at 4% versus 1%. Maybe not so much when it comes to spending, all right, or taxing, right? Because all of us pay our taxes. So we feel it's worth remembering and to reminding people about. We do have a AAA credit rating. When we hear people say we've got a AAA credit rating, my immediate answer is, a question is always to the people who say that, why do you give us AAA? So all I am smart about is saying, this is what they told us, okay? They said that conservative fiscal policies, having good economic development, having a solid fund balance, and all the other things that you see on the screen have the end result of getting to AAA rating, which in the box on the bottom of the page mentions why it's a good idea, because you pay less for your bonds, right? You're paying less interest. So just remember that's what we have as well. All right? Kev?
The major components are the town operations and our two boards of education. Revenue, we had a 0.7% increase in our net grand list, and I believe there is a typo in the document.
Yes, in this document here, right in the very front, I think you can see, not sure how it slipped my editing, but it says, it has a decimal point in the wrong spot. All right, it's a little under 1% if you want to just remember it that way, 0.7%. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Our spending from the prior budget is, we've gone to $76,114,000 from $73,755,000, which represents a 3.2% increase on the spending side. The impact to everyone here, we'll get into that more later, is it's a 1.56% tax increase in the current year. of the-
Okay. And that's in the mill rate, right, Kev?
That's in the mill rate,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay? So that's kind of like the bottom line up front. Those of you who work in certain industries, they use this a lot. Certainly in the government, they use it all the time. All right, your considerations for this year, Kev?
The factors impacting everyone here in this room and in the town, start off with obviously the big one is the pandemic and how that's affected our personal lives, our business lives, children, remote learning, everything that's going on, the costs associated with that. Wage increases, union, non-union contracts, there's always, there's wage increases in this budget, which impact us all. Safety and security is always an important factor. That's our police department, our schools, our volunteer fire department. We get to medical insurance, which we'll get into more later, and the rising costs there have a big impact on our budget. Business slowdowns, closures, limited capacity at restaurants, bars not being allowed to be open unless they have food, and even the retail sector with limited people and actually forced to close for part of last year. And finally, we still have an ongoing employment and uncertainty with what's coming back, what offices are reopening, and some of the impacts to the town. And we have lost some businesses, and we've replaced some businesses, so there is positive news around the corner.
Okay, so these are the factors. We use this slide most every year and then call out the ones that we feel are the ones that are impacting our community as best we can and for our budget planning, right? Now, in terms of the budget summary, I'll just cover this briefly. You're going to see the individual details, all right? But here is one thing. Kev, you wanted to do the expenditures, if I recall.
Well, it's really what this shows is, about 63% of this budget is in our education field. Capital expenditures, we have at 0, but we'll talk to that later this evening. Town services and debts, 5%, but in the other one to point out in this area is the employee benefits have now risen to 11.61% of our total budget.
Okay, details to follow. All right, now there is another edit. Again, I apologize. There is a handout back in the back. The slice, where it sees fund balance and Amity revenue up there, if you look at the slice, the little blue slice, I think I would call it, it's the proper slice, but it had the wrong information on it. I think it had 0.12. Not sure how it got there, but we're going to do a deep dive on that. But in the presentation, we have corrected it, but it's not proper in here. The data in the back is proper, but the visual is wrong. Hence, we sent out, we made the updated version. So please, if you're going to take one of these, please take this other sheet as well, if you would. I'd appreciate it. So as you can see, property taxes do 91.76%, almost 92%, to cover whatever expenditures there are. So there's the 3.2 Kevin mentioned, all right? You can see the various budget increases, which we're going to go through just briefly. You can see the town budget went up over 4%. A lot of people heard me say the word violation, right? That's a large number. That's even higher than that 4% I showed you earlier. We'll talk about that. Debt and capital went up about 18%, all right? I won't steal thunder from a prior slide, but there's reasons for that, which we'll explain, and I think most people know. The Orange Public Schools up 2.78%, Vince, if I got that right? And the Amity Regional budget went up 1.8. The impact of Orange was less than that because of our ratios, but that was the increase of their budget. So as you can see, the total increase in the town of Orange budget is $2,358,723. All right, and that should be consistent with everything that's in your documentation. All right. Okay, so if you just give us 10 to 15 seconds for changeover, we have a presentation that Dr. Scarpetti is going to do. And I think, if I got this right. There we go. So you can either use the pointer or you can use these things here, your choice.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Vince Scarpetti. I'm the Superintendent of Schools of Orange, grades pre-K to 6. In our budget and presentation, there's a letter that Mr. Kraut and I wrote. As Mr. Houlihan shared and others about the pandemic, it has a true impact of many things financially, but also how we conducted ourselves in the education world. And, just to point out, we strongly believe that the budget represents a strong fiscal management. As you will see in years past, the majority of a taxpayers goes to the education system. And we believe that's a strong value because we believe that people come to Orange for the education system, and our houses do have the value that it has because of the education system that all of us have created. As indicated, it takes not just one person, but many people to develop the budget. Many of our board members are in the audience today. Many are watching at home, and also is the administrative team. For the sake of time, I won't read everyone, but I want to thank everyone who was a part of this process. Every board meeting we start, and this is typical for a Board of Education, there's a mission statement. Typically, it's not read at every board meeting that I know of. I know prior to my arrival as superintendent, they've said it. And it's something that's not just words. It's something that they live and breathe by, in my opinion. Specifically, this item right here. Together, we will make a difference. This, in my purview, I've only been here 6 years, but the community that Orange has been incredible. No matter what situations that we faced, starting from the first selectman, all the way down to board members, Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, Highway Department, Police. It's been incredible. But to see what has occurred during this pandemic has been immense. I've said this statement before, if you've watched Board of Ed meetings, we are living, I believe, in an environment where the right decision today is the wrong answer tomorrow. We've had to been very flexible on our feet of decisions we've made, and this has been a highlight of the education as being COVID conscious. We've had to create committees, create parent involvement, teacher involvement, our paraprofessionals to get ready for a school and a system that we didn't know what was going on. I could remember on March 13th dealing with Dr. Byers, Dr. Mohammed. I think I was having conversations with the first selectman, the board chair, closing. And what did we think? We thought it was going to be 2 weeks maybe. Look at where we are. And I feel that some people, and this is a good place, we've changed so much and improved so much that sometimes we've forgotten what we've done and what we've gone through. But I'm very proud of the work that the system has done to create in-person learning or safe environments. I'm sure all of you have heard. It's beyond the security now. It's about the ventilation systems that we have in our school system. And also, the state has asked that we provide distance learning. One, as an option for our parents during this time, but also because if we had to, depending on the exposure of this virus. So we've been fortunate that we've been a district that we started in person. We've intentionally gone on remote learning after holidays. And we've been, hopefully, I made a joke with a few people here this evening. I've never been a person to count how many days are left of school. This year I'm counting. For whatever reason, I'm counting it. And so we're hoping that we're going to finish strong with the remaining. That being said, there's the daily elements that you have to deal with. And again, the collaboration that we had with the town, with the Munis Financial Software, has been a huge undertaking. And again, we're working hard with that to create better systems for our school and our town. Our goals is to continue to build and promote strong foundations, continue to strengthen our teaching and learning, engaging our students. And this will always be on our mind, again, not only with our security, but ensuring safety and healthy environments. And that information is continually being updated with what we need to do for our students and faculty to make them safe and provide healthy environments to them. So this is typical information we share. Prior to my arrival and per the guidance of the Board of Finance, we would do projections. And if you see here in 13-14, there was an establishment made that we would project how many students we would have the next year. And you could actually see a decrease. And what was noted is that a guesstimate, an estimate of students. What was the guidance we received is literally count how many children you'll have, and then we'll update it as we go along. The only preliminary fact that we wouldn't know for a fact is our kindergarten numbers. So as you see, once we started doing that and gave the actual numbers that we have when we present it, hang on, is the numbers would always increase. So again, when we presented to the Board of Finance, it would increase. So you would see this trend of increase. This year, we didn't. We don't have this information on fact, but we believe because of the pandemic, there were parents, specifically our kindergarten parents, that chose not to bring their kids to school. Registration's open. We are a little bit higher with our registration numbers than years before, but that number remains to be seen. We always provide our yearly increases. This year, we're asking a 2.7% increase, which totals $594,837. Pie charts, as you can tell, we like a lot of pie charts. But this shows something. And even beyond what Mr. Houlihan and the rest of the Board of Finance, salary and benefits, in my mind, you will always see the majority. I call this the human capital of our Board of Education, that without our staff, we would be nowhere. No matter what programs are out there, it's our human capital that makes the improvement and impact our student learning. And as that was shown at the pie chart, salary and benefits, substitute teachers. Again, the pandemic has had a ripple effect in many situations. We could be faced with putting a class on quarantine or an individual teacher, and that has increased our substitute line item, and it continues to do so. Typically at any budget workshop that I've worked with our Board of Education or Board of Finance, typical questions we receive is, hey Vince, how come this line item went up from last year? It went down from last year. And we talk about the ebb and flow. And what's nice to see is about 2 or 3 years ago, we shared with the Board of Finance and Board of Education members that you would see a decrease. And that's the ebb and flow, because we want to invest in certain elements of professional learning. And now that we have educated our teachers with curriculum mapping, now it's our time to do the work. And so there's a decrease with regarding professional learning, curriculum materials, textbooks and supplies, and again, municipal energy. But you will typically see that ebb and flow in line items. Again, we are requesting a 2.78% increase. We wanted to know contractual obligations alone, which is a theme that you've heard since the beginning of this presentation. If we did contractual obligations alone, it would be a 3.05% increase. And as always, as I shared before, we like to extend a thank to all of you in the community, all of you watching at home, of the support that you provided our students and our staff this year more than ever. We greatly appreciate it, and thank you for your continued support.
Thank you. And again, I stated at your meeting when you presented the budget to our board, to yourself and most of your board members, I believe, are here, and other people involved. You guys have done a phenomenal job with keeping the schools going in Orange. And
Thank you, Mr. Houlihan.
people, great job.
Yep, a number of best practices, if I remember our discussion, Vince.
Yes.
36 days, right?
About 36 days.
Okay, a little bit of a change over here, and Amity and Dr. Byers will be with us in just a second, so let me just find that file. Or it'd probably be better if I put my glasses on. There we go. And let me do this for you, Jen. There you go.
Good evening. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time you have provided for me to speak with you this evening. I'm Jem Byers, the superintendent of the Amity Regional School District. And much like Dr. Scarpetti, our budget process is a long process, and it begins sort of at 3 levels with the district's mission, vision, and goals. We also attend to fiscal responsibility to all the taxpayers in BOA, and we are constantly striving for the 3 A's of Amity, which we will review later in the presentation. We also have our contractual obligations, which include not just the contracts with many of our employees, but also contracts with food service, bus companies, our contracts for water and fuel, maintenance of the buildings. We have federal and state mandates that we have to attend to, and ultimately the school and the department requests. The budgeting process for Amity begins in November, when we start to take in requests from our department chairs. Throughout the course of November until about January, it's a collaborative process between our finance department, my office, and all of our building administrators and department chairs. And in that process, we look to find efficiencies and savings. We look to prioritize or eliminate some new requests, and also to reduce and combine redundancies across the buildings. Typically in January, I present a first go-round of the superintendent's budget to the Board of Education, as well as the Amity Finance Committee, and we get feedback from them throughout the months of January and February, and ultimately in March, the board will typically adopt a budget after the approval of that budget by the Amity Finance Committee. So Amity prides itself on providing an education that is comprehensive to all of our students in grades 7 through 12. And as I said, we focus on the 3 A's, the first of them being our academics. In spite of a pandemic, we are still the top-ranked school district in New Haven, as well as the 6th-ranked public school district in the state of Connecticut. We have advanced placement classes, early college experience classes, our science research program, as well as an incredibly diverse program of studies. And if you ever want to see the amazing opportunities that our high school students have, I encourage you to look at our website and look at a program of studies. You will see classes that will absolutely flabbergast you at the opportunities that we present to our young people in our communities. We offer a senior service learning program, a senior interest project. We offer college partnerships for students who wish to take collegiate level classes when they are seniors, when they are attending the high school. We have a pre-apprenticeship manufacturing program, community service program, student organizations and clubs that in spite of a pandemic have managed to operate virtually throughout the course of the school year. This year we had 9 National Merit Scholar finalists. These are the top 1% of students in the entire country in terms of their achievement on the PSAT. And we achieved a 94.7% graduation rate, which is typical of us, a little bit lower though, and again, probably as a result of the pandemic compared to previous years. Our second area of achievement and great pride is in the area of athletics, and that is our second A. Despite having limited seasons because of the pandemic, we were able to field in the fall almost 500 student athletes ranging across 20 teams. In the winter, about 300. And this spring, with the addition of a full comprehensive middle school sports program, we have over 650 athletes at this point, fielding 32 teams. We have been division championships, runners-up, division team championships. We have had all state student athletes, all SCC athletes, and SCC coaches of the year. Because I'm able to compare presentations year to year when I do these, I will tell you that in a year of pandemic, we have actually increased the number of both student athletes as well as our academic accolades compared to the previous school year in spite of the pandemic. We have had more AP students, more ECE students, more coaches of the year, more all-state athletes, more SCC athletes. Our final area that we take pride in is the area of the arts, and that's the last of our 3 A's. And again, we have managed to achieve amazing things in spite of the obstacles that we have been presented with. In our musical arts, our students have still participated in our Southern Regional auditions. They have put together virtual performance ensembles as well as community performances. We have members who have participated in our Scholastic Art Competition and continued our partnerships with the Jamie Hulley Arts Foundation with memory portraits. We've had students receive film student honors and accolades for documentaries that they've created. And we have still managed to put together our Performing Arts Department with a virtual production of It's a Wonderful Life in the fall. And Amity Creative Theater is currently working on our spring musical, Anastasia, which will be performed outside in June in person. So in terms of our budget, Mr. Leahy did point out our budget increase overall is a 1.8% from the previous year. But because the budget increase is driven by enrollment, you can see that the increase to orange is less than 1%. It's a 0.93. The school district that had the largest take on the budget was actually Woodbridge, and that's because they have a much higher enrollment than they have in past years, so they actually assume a greater percent of that 1.8% increase. Just for comparison, next to this, we do return funds at the end of the year if we have not spent them. Obviously, last year, when we closed schools in March, we stopped a significant amount of our spending. And so at the end of the school year, we had monies left over because we did not have the need for substitute teachers. We did not run spring sports. We did not have any field trips. We did not run a graduation the way we typically did. We did not need substitute teachers. We didn't need lab supplies. We didn't need paper. And so at the end of the year, when we had monies left over, we returned that back to the towns. And you can see, again, the town return of funds is proportional to the student enrollment. So what this budget currently supports is a new middle school special education program. This will include both a mental health clinician and a special education teacher. The idea behind this program is that for our most profoundly disabled students, sometimes the school environment is not the best place for them to receive their education. So a lot of times these students are sent to what we call out-of-district placements. These are, can be public or private schools, but they come at a cost. They come with a tuition. If we are able to build that type of program within our own school building, we do not have to pay the tuition for those students. We do not have to pay for the cost of the transportation to a place that's significantly further away. And those students are actually able to be educated in the same school as their peers. And so we are looking to build a program starting next year in our middle schools, and 2 years from now, we would expand that up into our high school. That will allow us to keep the children of Bethany, Orange, and Woodbridge in our school system with an appropriate special education service and placement. The budget also reflects a full implementation of our one-to-one device initiative. This obviously picked up speed this year because of the pandemic, but we still have one grade level that does not have one-to-one devices. And so the budget for next year would make sure that all students have a one-to-one device so that they are able to learn in both an in-person as well as a virtual learning format. We do have new textbook resources. Last year, in order to lower the budget, we put a significant reduction to our textbook line item. This is an opportunity for us to catch back up and to provide our students and our teachers with the learning resources and materials that they need to provide the excellent education that we believe our community expects for our students. We also have a realignment of our middle school literacy program with the Reader's Workshop. This budget supports new classes in unified science and in high school English, and it reflects capital improvements to our buildings and grounds that, again, were deferred last year in order to make last year's budget lower in terms of its percent increase and impact on the taxpayers. The Amity referendum is a separate referendum from the town referendum, so it will be held on May 5th, and our voting as of right now is anticipated to be in person, although absentee ballots are available through the town clerk. And as Dr. Scarpetti says, I do thank the community for the support that you provide to our Amity students and to the Amity School District. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next section is the town. So we have 3 sections of the budget, right? We have the OBOE, we have Amity, and now we're going over to the town services budget overview, right? Kev, were you going to do this one? Okay, thank you. How to read the chart first, right? We have categories of, these are in the revenues. You can see that the large number, first of all, the columns, you have the categories of property taxes, collections going all the way down to interest, money out of fund balance, and the Amity refund, and all others. You can see what we had adopted last year, and you can see the revenue projections here. And you can see the change, and you can see what the percentage of the change are. A couple of comments. Interest is clearly going down, right? I think we all know that, right? It's the interest rates, you know, what are they on Ally Bank now, 0.5%. And last year we had overestimated by a wide margin, so that's a big reduction there, as you can see, 88%. In terms of the fund balance in Amity, we created a chart to emphasize this so that you're aware of the details. As you can see, last year, in terms of the fund balance we put into the budget, $300,000. We're putting in this year $700,000. In terms of the Amity refund, and over the last year, as Jen mentioned, Amity has returned over $1 million in each of the last 2 years. The Orange Board of Finance has put in $850,000 into this budget. Now, on the spending side, what we do rigorously every year is say, where can we, in those categories of general government, public safety, you can read them on the left there. And there's a lot of, like we go through expenditures like 23 or 25 pages of them under those categories. All right, with the exceptional leadership of John Cifarelli and Audrey Gear, they identified a number of targets. I believe it was 87, but regardless, they reduced 52 of them, thereby saving the town expenditures over $600,000, $607,175. And some of these are little things. $100 saved, cut out of a budget. Some of them are larger than that, $104,000, if I remember the largest one. But we too go through this exercise, and this funnel chart, so-called, is one that we show most every year. All right, and these were accepted by the Orange Board of Finance back on March 15th. Now, in terms of those categories, we're going to talk about a couple of them, but in general, in your package, summarized, it looks like this. You see the general government went up 52,706. I'm not going to read them all, but you get your brain into the gear there, about a 2% increase. Public safety, all right, the police and others, all right, that went up a little bit, again, 2%. Public works and public buildings, there was a decrease there. Culture and recreation went up a little bit. What you see on the health and welfare was a $70,000 increase. What you're going to find out if you went into the details is we needed to buy another.
It was a new van.
Kev?
It was a van for community services.
A new van. I think it was like $55,000 or something like that. John, am I in the ballpark on that? I think it was 6? Yeah. Okay, so that was the bulk of the $70,000 increase. We're going to have another slide to show you what went on in the employee services, but that is the key there, because you can see that it's a majority of the increase, even though it went up only 8%, it had a large base. And in town services, that went up 9% as well.
And then Jim, on the, not to interrupt, but on the town services, again, where we've had the issues with pension costs, health insurance, the town services, 38,000 of that increase is property insurance increase.
What is it, Kev?
It's property insurance.
Property insurance,
So that,
thank you.
again,
Okay.
all the insurances have risen in this environment.
Debt service and capital went up significantly. Recall the chart earlier when you saw it at 17.91%, but we have a further chart to show you what was behind the $536,000 increase in debt service. All right, so there's going to be some charts to support this. Okay, so we have $995,000, a 4.09, if you remember me tagging that back earlier slide. 690,000 of that 995,000 is employee benefits. So it's almost 70%, right? 69.3%. All right, and you can see the detail amounts. I don't have them broken out into little pieces, Vince. You're going to have to teach me that trick. I like that. It's a good one, all right? So, and we're going to talk a little bit in another chart what's behind the major drivers of that employee benefits. But Kev, maybe you gave us a sneak peek right now.
The majority of it's the increase in the pension because of the rate of return assumptions that have been changed, and we've always say it every year we're here. We've never underfunded our pensions, unlike some other towns. So that rose significantly this year, and then the health insurance side was also another large increase.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
the bulk of that number.
All right, we mentioned the debt. There is one and pretty much only one reason why the debt went up and went up big time, and that's because the town, as a town, all right, decided to purchase the Racebrook property, 287 acres, all right? And we're not going to get into a debate, do we like it, didn't like it. It's in the budget because the town voted for it, okay? So that had a pretty big impact on this budget, right? $500,000. So a couple of perspectives then. First of all, take a look at this. You're going into a town, you see this, I don't know if you can read the bottom there, at home you can, all right? But you're looking at a period of years from fiscal year 15, 16, up to the projection for next year. What do you see? You see two things that are going up higher or in a more rapid rate than the other two. One's education and one's employee benefits, all right? That's just the data. So, that's one thing. Second thing, within employee benefits, what do you see? Well, it's pretty clear. You see those. That rapid rise, the one on the left is the insurance, health and life. No surprise, really, when you think about how much we all pay, all right? And the pensions that Kevin mentioned. And this is a trend, right? It's been going up, and we've had to deal with it. So the increase is employee benefits, 690,000 out of the 995, and the 536,000, right, for that was the increase in debt, which basically because of the approval of the voters for the Racebrook property. So those two make up well over three-quarters of the increase in the town side of 4.09%. Now, Kevin alluded earlier at the chart that capital, we had zero invested in capital in the budget, and that's correct. However, that doesn't mean we're not investing in capital. What was it, a couple of years ago, Kevin, our auditors?
Yeah,
give us
our
some
auditors,
background here.
it was about 3-4 years ago, John? Our outside auditors recommended that we set up a capital reserve fund and handle it that way, and that's what we've done, and that's where this money's coming from for the things.
Now, in the OBOE line item, I believe, Vince, that 243 is like 10 items, Billy, is it 10 items, was it?
About that.
But when you came originally, that was in your budget.
Correct.
So you land with 2.78%, but we're also supporting these 10 line items for very, very important needs, all right? That's going to be in the process, upcoming process, that's going to be invested for OBOE. On the town side, there's 389,000.
Have to look to John at what we have in, the bulk of that is. I believe 200,000, oh no, that's in the other, to repair the school.
For the town, it's the payment. For the town, it's the maintenance payment for Munis, for both the town and the Board of Ed. It's $220,000 for reevaluation that's.
Oh, yeah,
coming
that's the
up
big
again.
part, the
The
reval.
reval?
And the police department needs a recording system for when they interview possible arrestees. It's part of the new police mandates that was passed in Hartford.
Yep. Another unfunded mandate. Sorry about that, Jim.
Okay, so other things that are in that 1,432,780 is a designation for two other things. First of all, paving. This morning, I took an hour and I went around and saw every single road with Donnie Fair, the leader of the highway department, and he showed me, right, every single one, not that you needed my approval, I just wanted to be interested in learning it. $600,000 is going to be invested in paving. In addition, High Plains Repair is various repairs, $200,000. That gives you the $800,000. Those three numbers add up to the number at the top of the page, $1.4 million. Now, paving also, just in general, is getting money from Town Aid Road, $600,000 more, and there is $100,000 that is in the budget, right? That is in this budget, from the highway budget, is also going to paving. So you sum it all up, just so that it's on the page, so you know that there's $1.3 million planned for paving for the next year, and I think it's going to start in May, this next month, right, Donnie? Thumbs up,
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, and we plan to
Jim.
approve the above amounts at a future date, very soon. I mean, it isn't like, we'll get around to it at some time. We've kind of agreed to it as a board. All right, and these come out of the capital reserve fund that Kevin mentioned that we've created in the past.
Jim, I just want to reiterate that the Board of Finance does not decide which roads get paved and don't get paved. As much as you would like to do that, we
As
do
a
not.
matter of fact, I had this conversation with Kevin, I had it with John, and I had it with Donnie. And to a man, they said, the highway department, they're the ones that should, along with the town engineer. Okay? It's not our job to say, oh,
Not us.
it's Jimmy's road, right? You don't want to do my driveway. No, I'm only kidding. Okay, sum it up. You've seen this chart. I wrote a couple articles. I used the same colors. All right? There it is. There's your expenditures. You can see the education at 62%. Doesn't include the facilities part of the education that we support, but it's ballpark. It's grenade close. It's certainly no lower than that. And you can see that the debt's at 3.5. These are all the data that's in your packages, okay? All right. So that's the town side, Kevin. This is how we are spending, the taxpayers in the room and those at home watching on YouTube or OGAT. Okay, a little bit quick. I'll go through, you've seen this in the past, so I'll just, for those who haven't seen it, I'll go. We want to talk about the process and the activity that we see. All right, it was a recommendation by one of the townspeople like 3 or 4 years ago, so I created a chart, and you'll see that at the end. First of all, what are the top 10? You can see, starting with United Illuminating, all the way down to Raymore and Flanagan, okay? Type of business, what's their assets, what percent of the grand list are they? So our top 10, as you can see at the bottom of the column, is a little under 12%, 11.93%. And to give it some boost, Mark Brancesi made an estimate of their gross estimated taxes for this upcoming year, but he used the last year's mill rate because he did it a few months ago, really. All right, so that's the chart. It's a chart we've seen before, and I don't know if there's anything worthwhile, Kevin, you want to add to this chart, or anybody on the team.
No, just, on the growth side, we do have some phase-ins for like United Illuminating and the Hartford Lodging Partners. So we'll be, if somebody was to look at what we're using in fund balance this year as a projection, we're not digging a hole. Some of these properties are phasing in, so their taxes are going to be higher next year, higher in the following year, so that gap's going to be filled.
Yeah, that's why we use the gross, I guess, was the name. Okay? Okay, economic development, 6-step process. All right? We don't have to go through all the steps, but basically it starts when you get started. You come up with some plans. Step 2, you get some pre-submission meetings. You have committee reviews. You get construction approval plans, and then you complete it. And then you're open for business, all right? And there's various steps, all right, under each one, all right? The key is this. It takes a period of time. You can go from step 1 to step 6 real fast, depends on the project. But typically, I put an estimate there by asking questions of people. I mean, I don't do this for a living, but that's what they say, right? So, but it's an extensive process time to do economic development in most cases. All right, one bonus thing is I learned there's a thing called enhanced value. I'll tell you what I know about it. When you do a property and you improve it, you used to have a value which I called old. Eventually, when it's all done, they have a value I call new. It's very high-tech, Pat, right? Somewhere in the middle, right, is something called enhanced value. I don't do it for a living, but that's what they told me, and I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that, for what it's worth. Okay, 3 pages on activity specific. Some of them we've seen before. Homewood Suites, as you can see. Now, this is a model, right? This is telling you over time what has happened. So you can see Homewood Suites became a 6, a completed project, last year, right? And we have an estimated value. That estimated value is a retail value, not a tax value, okay? Urban Air. Now, that was closed due to the pandemic, as you see on the right, but they have a new operator now, and it's recently been reopened. The U-Haul Regional Hub, all right? That's still open and operating. Home Depot Plaza, obviously Planet Fitness, when it wasn't shut down, all right, is open and operating, and it's been segmented into 2 parcels, the same message as last year. All right, the Gyroscope developer has property over in Smith Farm Road. That's in preliminary status right now, different from last year. All right, Route 1, Smith Farm Road, that's still there, still at 0. I left it in. Earth Materials site, that's behind the U-Haul place, the Nike site. All right, and that's under open and operating now. All right, so that's some of the things that have gone on in the past. I left them in, and now we'll get to the second page of 3 pages of the economic development. Here they are. The assisted living project in Indian River Road, big project. All right, it was paused due to COVID, but they have resumed site work. VA outpatient, it's up and running. Big project. Eastern Tech, very strong supporter of the community, a big supporter of the Orange Volunteer Fire Department, as you recall from the fire truck challenge. All right, we're lucky to have a community citizen like that. Federal Express, we all know it's up and running, and it's become a great neighbor from the interviews I've had with leaders in this area. The warehouse facility on Executive Boulevard, all right, that is now open, 30,000 feet. This is the entire building now has been leased to Bigelow Tea. I did not know that. Perhaps that would be of interest to you. The redevelopment project down at Firelight, we split that into 2 pieces, right? One is a 6, it's completed, and one is not, all right? We have it at a stage 4 in committee reviews. The 6 is the liquor store and the children's therapy, and that building space apparently is full. And the mixed-use thing, they've got through the wetlands, and they're proceeding over to zone. Now remember, economic development helps because then we have less taxes for retail, for residents. Amazon, look how quickly they got up and running, both their distribution hub and their motor fleet. All right, they went from last year, it wasn't open, this year, open and operating, as we see their trucks around a lot, actually. Salemi Lane, still at 0. Rings End took over Bedding Barn. It's a family-owned home improvement store with multiple Connecticut locations. Now it's open. Mission Barbecue. I went down there the other day. They had a flag. The fire truck was there. It's open and operating now. And it's a great new community partner. And right next to it, as part of that same building that used to be the pizza place, there's this thing that Haven Hot Chicken, which at least in the Board of Finance I know is getting great reviews, and it's coming. It'll be the second one in Connecticut. And it's always interesting to figure out, some people can expand and replicate what they did in some location, but sometimes if you don't have that magic sauce in the kitchen and you now have, 2 kitchens, it doesn't work out. But I've heard great things there, right? So there's a little bit of a primer on Orange economic development. Thank you for your patience on that. All right. What does the budget mean to you? Because that's the bottom line, right? So Kevin already went through it, right? Spending 3.2, a little higher than I might like, but mill rate only went up 1.56. So we want to show you what that means, at least conceptually. If you had a house, well, actually, just look at last year's taxes and multiply it by 1.56%, and that's the new number. But if it was 355,500, and therefore assessed, Excel did this, at 70% would be the 248,850. The mill rate of 32.74 was last year. This year, the new mill rate is 33.25. That's what drives it. So if you paid 80,147 last year, this year you'd be paying 8,274. We've already identified and talked about some of the reasons why expenditures specific to the town went up. The superintendents spoke to their budgets, and the increase would be $127, 1.56%, right? Okay. Now, I asked John Cifarelli, our Director of Finance, for a historical perspective of the mill rates in Orange. Now, I've been doing this since 2005. I had some of the data. I didn't have all of it. That's our mill rate since 2010, 2011, 29.30. And you can see it goes up, comes back down. Typically, when it comes back down, that's a reval year, right? So you can see you had a reval. We're going to have a reval, by the way. Is it next year, guys?
Yep.
Okay, so you can see what it is, right? That's the data. So I asked myself, well, what was the percentage increase on each of those years? And I came up with that. So reading from the left, the increase from 10, you need 2 years to have an increase, right? You had to go from 10-11 to 11-12. And so it went up 3.07%. And you can read the rest of the chart. You can see how it goes down in a reval year typically. But that's what you were paying, all right? The mill rates are what you were paying for your property in those years. So the average increase was 1.18%, right? Just add up those numbers and divide. Excel does the work, right? Okay. Now remember that chart I showed you earlier, Einstein's thing, 1% versus 4%. We can see that our 10-year history of the mill rate is 1.18%, so it's lower, it's nearer the red, all right? And when I put it into Excel and I said, okay, take 100, put it out 1.18% each year, the end result was 112.4. It'll come up in your Excel as well. So the importance of compound annual increases, right? How to quantify that importance? So I did a little bit of calculation, and I presented it in other meetings before, but I don't know how much audience we had. I pay about $7,000 annually in taxes. We can obviously see from the other chart that my house is, I love my house, it's fine. All right, it's less than the average or the median. So I have to ask myself, if I go up from my 7 to something else at 4% rate, and I go up at a 1% rate, what's the difference? What am I paying over 10 years? Just, I'm curious. And I found out that I would be paying at 4% $87,000, and at 1% I'd be paying $73,000. I said, wow, that's $13,436 less. I'm not saying we shouldn't pay or spend whatever we have to pay to do what's right. What I am saying, there is value in prudent government spending. And that when you really look at this data, that a 1%, I call it a 1% household, a 1% household compared to that 4% household, in a sense, you would pay taxes for 8 years, you get 2 years for free. I was amazed by that. I'm saying it's a highly tangible objective to strive for. It doesn't drive behavior necessarily. That's all I'm saying. Here's the data. The blue would be the 1%, right? The orange is the 1.18%. The 4% is gray. They're the same at the start in year 0. And they really aren't that much different until all of a sudden, in the out years, look what's happening as you go year to year. And there's that $13,000 difference between the 1% and the 4%. So what I'm saying is, since we were at 1.18%, right, that there's the line of the 1.18%, it's the orange, kind of hugs the blue, but it has to be higher than it. And so we're off by $740 compared to the 1%. But compared to a 4%, it's a large amount of money. Now, I'm not saying I know of a place that's averaged 4% over the last 10 years. I'm saying it's a prudent objective. And so, to me, who spends $7,000 a year in taxes, to think about this, I say, this 1.18% mill rate over 10 years would save me $12,677 compared to a 4% household. That's all I'm saying. Okay? So, Kevin, you want to take it away here?
As Dr. Byers mentioned, the Amity budget referendum's on May 5th. The day before, on May 4th, they have their budget hearing. Ours, obviously, our budget hearing's right now. The town meeting is May 12th. If there's any changes to our budget between now and then, that's where that's presented, but there's a lot more items on the agenda for that meeting. That meeting's adjourned to our budget referendum, which takes place on May 20th. And is that going to be 12 to 8, or has that not been decided yet?
They made it the whole time now.
Oh, it's going to be 6 a.m. to 8? Okay. So that'll be all-day voting or absentee ballot for that.
Okay.
Get back to you.
Last item on the agenda then is Q&A. I know at least in the process for that is to sign up. Mitch has signed up already. So we'll start with Mitch, and then we'll go to whomever else. Just sign in and come right up and use the materials right here.
Good evening. Mitch Goldblatt, 291 Drummond Road. First of all, I want to thank the Board of Finance, the Orange Board of Education, the Amity Board of Education for their hard work in what we all know was a very difficult year. And I had a number of questions. Many were answered tonight. I also want to thank Finance Director John Cifarelli, who answered a lot of my questions over the phone. My being here tonight, I want to let you know that after perusing the budget before this evening, watching you guys on OGAT for several months, the budget and the Amity budget I will support. And I urge everyone else to support and vote in favor of come the coming referendum. But I do have one comment slash, if you will, criticism, and that is your use of fund balance. The fund balance is high. You have chosen to use last year $300,000 of fund balance to balance the budget. This year you used $700,000. I believe that's a dangerous precedent to be using fund balance to balance your operating expenses. It puts you in a hole each year, and you put yourself in a hole next year of $700,000. On the other hand, I believe the fund balance should be used, when it is as high as it is, for one-time capital purchases. So instead of using the fund balance to plug a hole in the budget, it should be used for one-time expenditures. Mr. Leahy mentioned one of those tonight, and I think we can do better. The roads in this town, in the neighborhoods, are an embarrassment, and they're deplorable. We need to take action now. We don't have to bond. Mr. Leahy put forward tonight $1.3 million towards roads. My suggestion is to the Board of Finance to use $500,000 more of fund balance towards our road repairs this year. That will bring your fund balance from 16.77 by my back-of-the-envelope calculations to still 16%. Still a very, very healthy fund balance, one that's probably the envy of many, many towns in the state of Connecticut. So my suggestion tonight is to really make a commitment towards our roads in the community without bonding, without having to pay interest. The money is there. It will not affect anyone's taxes this year because you're just shifting money from fund balance towards roads. And I think it's imperative we do that for the sake of our community and the infrastructure of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, it's open for people in the room, and also, I'm not sure what happened to the feed, okay, whoa. Oh, okay. Maybe while waiting for the people in the room to have more questions, John, do you have any questions that have come in from the audience?
We received one email from a Lou Gloria on Donna Drive, and he has what he calls a fairly straightforward question. Are the following roads going to be addressed with money that has recently been allocated? And it's the whole group of roads where he lists: Dennis Drive, Donna Drive, Richards Drive, and Glenbrook Drive.
Could you list those names? I have the list right here, John.
It would be the middle section.
The middle section, I believe.
Right. Would you, your mic's on, right?
Right.
So would you say the names one more time?
Oh, okay. Dennis Drive,
Correct.
Donna Drive,
Donna, yep.
Richard Drive, and Glenbrook Drive.
Glenbrook Drive. I have a check mark on all four, and I have seen it this morning with Donnie. Obviously, Donnie's the one who does the work, decides which ones. But yes, the answer to that is yes.
And that's the only email I've received so far tonight.
Okay? Again, if you want, sign in, ask questions.
Going once. Pat?
Jim, if I can I just want to remind people that if you're voting absentee, it actually is 2 referendum, and you need 2 applications and 2 absentee ballots. One application will not do it to get both ballots. So please be sure to submit 2 applications.
So if you're out of town for the Amity one, get one for that. If you're out of town for both of them, get one for both. And you can get that at town hall.
Correct.
Good. John, final check of the email? Mr. Chairman?
Nobody has any further questions or comments, and thank you all for coming.
All right, good. Thank
Conclude
you.
this. Is it a formal meeting? Make a motion to adjourn, PJ. Second by Kevin. All those in favor? Meeting adjourned at 8:12.